Biden. So
well, I was under the impression you were brewing it yourself without license. This is new information.
We're on the air. Shh.
Okay.
Your bottle is on its way to you.
Right. Now, come here. Obviously, a lot of people welcoming this outcome, other than Donald Trump and his supporters. Donald Trump still claims that this is a fix. The fix is in, that he's not accepting this.
Yes, indeed. It's a difficult one for him to prove. Impossible, actually, for him to prove. But it's posturing by Donald Trump, and it's his prerogative to protest where he thinks protests are necessary. It'll go through the courts. It may go to the Supreme Court. At the end of the day, I don't think he will win. But it holds up the process of transition, which is important.
Yeah, and he is not a president. He's not obliged to concede defeat formally. That's just a tradition as such. So it's up to him how he goes out, really, effectively.
Exactly, Greg. It could be literally a simple 30-second private telephone conversation between himself and Joe Biden. It could be on a public stage. It could be not at all. There's no law to say that the losing president has to concede publicly or privately with the elected one. But it kind of affects the transition process, as I mentioned, because Joe Biden cannot bring his staff to the White House. He cannot access funds to set up offices. He cannot meet with his opposite staff on the Trump side to learn what could be vital intelligence. So it doesn't really help the United States overall.
Yeah, and also listening to the news this morning, one of his first focuses will be to assemble a COVID task force, and he's promised to listen to medical advice and believes that really the economy can't recover until they get a hold of this pandemic, and maybe introduce some sort of a national testing system and all of that. But of course, time is of the essence. The impression, if you listen to the reports, was that this work or this action may start today, but he does not have that power. He can assemble and discuss, but he doesn't have the power to alter policy until the new year, does he?
Well, not only, Greg, but he doesn't have the power to force individual states to impose restrictions. So he can, of course, advise states that mask wearing should be mandatory everywhere, but he doesn't have the power to impose that on states. Yes, he has set up a 12-member coronavirus task force today. In fact, as we speak, I think they're meeting with Biden and Kamala Harris. He can, of course, maybe provide some incentives from federal government money. If it comes to the point, he could impose a state of emergency in some states, which means they can have access to extra dollars for healthcare. But aside from that, there isn't an awful lot that he can do in terms of imposing widespread restrictions. And of course, we have 10 million cases, I think, in the United States, 50 million cases worldwide. I think over 100 or 120,000 cases every day in the United States for the last week. So it's getting pretty bad. I mean, it has been bad, but it's getting worse.
Which makes me wonder why he didn't discourage people assembling to celebrate his victory.
It's a very good point. Most of them were wearing masks, but as you saw from the visuals, most people were just celebrating with each other and expect another surge after the celebration.
Okay, what does this mean, do you think, he's got a lot to work on. Obviously, there's Trump's pulling out of climate deals. Will that be reversed? The deal, the situation brokered in Israel that does not really necessarily please an awful lot of people. Donald Trump's relationship with North Korea, his relationship with China, his relationship with Boris Johnson. And interesting to see Boris Johnson and his team temper their language a little bit since Biden won. But in terms of globally, right, I mean, what difference will a Joe Biden's presidency actually make? Like, there's a lot there.
Well, in terms of us here in Ireland and the EU in general, Biden supports the EU, which puts Boris Johnson on the back foot because he was hoping Biden would win. He and Trump would form a little bloc, and he'd be able to hold off against EU. But now Boris will be in a bit of a corner, and perhaps an agreement with the EU and the United Kingdom will be closer now. Joe Biden will, of course, sign up again with the World Health Organization and start to release dollars for that organization. On that issue, actually, having worked with various United Nations programs when I lived abroad, I do have to add a word of warning. Yes, we do want the World Health Organization and we do want United Nations agencies for what they do. But honestly, what I saw was also a lot of waste. A lot of people at the top of these organizations with big fat expense accounts and big salaries. So I think, yes, we need to support those organizations. But like any corporation or like any state body within Ireland, we really have to analyse if public money is being used in the right way.
And we don't want, I mean, I presume it's not just a case of Biden does the opposite of everything Trump does. You know what I mean? Like if the WHO needs looking at, it's not, we don't want a situation, do we, whereby, Joe Biden says, well, Trump did this, well, I'm going to give them my full support to release money to them. There is a middle ground there.
Well, absolutely. Greg, if you consider that it is believed that the coronavirus began in Wuhan province in China, the World Health Organization sent in a team to investigate how it moved from animal to human. And they were not given access to the very animal market in Wuhan where it is believed this all started because the Chinese authorities refused to do so. So China does give money to the World Health Organization, but countries who belong to it and give money have also got to be more supportive than that. And that's just one example where China did not help the World Health Organization find out how this virus moved from animal to human.
I mean, there over 70 million people voted for Donald Trump. There is division within the Republican Party. There's division too within the Democratic Party. It is a country divided. What next?
Well, re-engagement, I think. It is hoped that because Biden has been in the Senate for decades, that he knows the White House because he was vice president, because he has a penchant for reaching across the aisle and knows Mitch McConnell, the Republican majority leader in Senate, that they might be able to compromise on some issues. But the world has changed, I'm afraid, since he first became a senator, and reaching across the aisle is not easy. And both parties have divisions within themselves. You have the progressives, as they're called, within the Democrats, who are more socialist with a small s. They want, for example, Medicare for all. You have within the Republicans far right as well as moderates. So they have to watch out for their support base before they give up this or that in terms of compromise.
And I suppose it is how the Republicans go from here. Really, we'll find out about, people talk about Trumpism and it staying on and what have you, but that's going to be an interesting journey for Republicans over the next 4 years as to where they set themselves up. And you can probably find out an awful lot over the next while by watching the media that parrots what they're being asked to do so.
Exactly. What's going to be very important, as I mentioned a few days ago to you, and I still hold to it, the Democrats won the House of Representatives, so they did lose some seats. They've won the White House now. The Senate is still in the balance because there are 2 seats, as you know, in Georgia, which will be decided in January. If the Democrats manage to win both seats, they will control all 3. They will have a sweep. And then passing legislation will be easy. If they don't win in Georgia in January, it means that the Republicans will do what they did for 6 years to Obama, and that will probably be obstructionism.
Now, obviously, the United States under Donald Trump wanted to bring as much business back to the United States as possible. Of course, we have a lot of US companies operating in Ireland. The corporation was dropped really quite significantly. President Obama also was, although he didn't quite go as far as Donald Trump, was very keen to see businesses, even from Ireland, returning back to the United United States. Joe Biden, he's kind of indicated on the campaign trail that he'd probably favour corporation tax going somewhere between where it's at now in the low 20s and 35 where it was at previously. Is that something we need to be keeping an eye on as we look to retain as much and as many, of those companies in this country as are here now, if not attract more?
Well, let's be quite honest. Ireland is kind of an offshore tax haven for corporations. And various successive governments in Ireland boast about employing this number of people or that number of people. But a lot of it is because these corporations gain generously from our low corporate tax. Joe wants to keep jobs in the United States. You can't blame him. Every leader of every country would like to do so. I don't think there's going to be a massive loss of jobs in Ireland. And we have to keep in mind the sentimental aspect, even though it comes up hard against pragmatism. Joe has Irish ancestry, so he's not going to abandon Ireland. He will probably use Ireland as a conduit to Brussels. And Galway, Louth and Mayo, especially Ballina and Mayo, as you know, are going to watch the number of pubs that are established in Ballina over the next few months. Getting back to the issue of jobs, we're not going to lose a lot of jobs. The tax advantages here are just too good for American corporations.
And, of course, Donegal connection as well through Congressman Brendan Boyle. He is being tipped as maybe being pulled in as part of Joe Biden's administration. He's the only politician elected now with an Irish parent. And, of course, his family, most of his family live here in County Donegal. That would be, I'm not sure how familiar you are with him or his politics, Sean, but that would be a big boost for him, and it'd be a good friend of Ireland to have in that administration, another good friend.
Exactly. As you say, Greg, I'm not too overly familiar with the gentleman you mentioned, but I would add that I think Donegal County Council has a special awards program, and they have an award.
The Tip O'Neill Awards, I think you're referring to.
Exactly. So I think now is the time for whoever is in charge of that to reach out either to Chris Dodds, I think, who could be the new ambassador to Ireland, if they haven't already reached out, or to this fellow you've just mentioned, Greg. Get on the phone today and line him or her up, and let's get something going for Donegal.
All right, it's interesting times. It'll be an interesting couple of years, I think. You know, we haven't seen, have we not? I haven't seen many reports of it, of violent clashes or people taking to the streets. I think we need to move away from that kind of language and rhetoric. And I think, too, you know, there's an awful lot of teasing, you know, going on. And that is not very... that's not very helpful either, if you know what I'm on about. A lot of boasting and finger pointing and la 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 la, you know, a lot of schoolboy stuff from all sides. And I think really that's something we need to move forward from, isn't it?
Well, as long as it doesn't.
Or is it good fun? Maybe it's good fun. I don't know.
As long as it doesn't go beyond la 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 la, sticks and stones. You know, it's. I'm very concerned, actually. I don't know if it's the eye before of the storm. But the Trump supporters have been quite quiet. And I'm just wondering, is there going to be a backlash this week? We've seen the celebrations of the Biden supporters, but the Trump supporters have been quite restrained. And I must say, I didn't expect that. Some of them being real extremists. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it stays as la, 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 la.
Well, in fairness, the extremists would be very, very small in number. I mean, over 70 million voted for the man. So, you know, everyone with that kind of a support base presumably is going to have elements within it.
But you know what I mean, Greg? It only takes half a dozen hooligans at a football match to start a riot. And that's what I'm afraid of. Not that the extremists are big in number, because you're right, they're not. 71 million people sincerely believed in Republican policies and voted for him, and give him credit for that. It's not an election he should be ashamed about. He did better than anyone expected. But it only takes a small handful of hooligans from either side to cause a major riot. And then I don't know what would happen then.
Well, hopefully we don't see that. Sean, thank you very much. I appreciate it greatly.
You're welcome. Here's a drink to you. Your bottle's on the way, Greg.
Okay, take care of
Gonna
yourself.
go Pachin.
Okay, Sean Hillen there, living in Brillenlac, and a journalist, editor, and publisher for American TV, worked over there